So, you know what's surprisingly intense in the world of tiny machines?
Go on.
It's the like almost frantic demand for these two very specific RC car parts.
Okay. Which ones?
The re-released Tamiya Brat wheels and tires, part numbers 900 5099 and 940 0554.
Ah, the Brat stuff. Yeah, I've heard about that.
And it's not just, needing a replacement part. It's actually tied to this whole trend people call the Brat attack.
The Brat attack. Okay.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing how bits of plastic and rubber can get such a following, isn't it?
It really is. Shows the passion in the RC community.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, that's exactly what we're digging into today. Why are these, well, seemingly simple parts so incredibly popular? Why do they just vanish from shelves?
Right.
So our goal in this deep dive, especially for you listening in, is to sort of unravel this whole thing.
Uh-huh.
We'll look at the trend, the history behind it, the tech side, why they even fit, and the market stuff that keeps them selling out.
Sounds good. Like a shortcut to understanding this little niche phenomena.
Exactly. So let's start with that term you picked up on, the Brat attack. What actually is that?
Yeah, break it down for us.
So basically, the Brat attack is when RC fans take the wheels and tires from the Tamiya Subaru Brat.
The white 8-spoke ones.
Hmm.
And those blocky tires.
Those exact ones, yeah. And they fit them onto other classic Tamiya 2WD buggies.
Like which ones?
Oh, the big names. The Sand Scorcher, the Frog, Grasshopper, Hornet, even the Fast Attack vehicle.
Okay, so it's a swap. But why? Is it just looks?
Well, looks are a huge part of it, yeah. The Brat wheels and tires, they give these other buggies a tougher look, more aggressive, all-terrain, kind of a Baja buggy feel.
I can picture that. Gives them a different character.
Totally. And it taps into personalization, obviously, but also this, huge wave of nostalgia for the 80s RC scene.
Ah, the golden era connection.
Exactly. And think about the real Subaru Brat, that quirky, tough little truck. That image kind of carries over.
Right, that makes sense. It's not just the parts, it's the whole vibe they bring. That era definitely holds a lot of meaning for people who were into RC back then.
For sure. It's like reconnecting with that time. And here's a kicker. This isn't like a new thing that just popped up.
Oh.
No, apparently it goes way back. Decades. People talk about it on forums, even mentions from the 80s about using Brat wheels on, say, the Hornet, maybe to tweak the handling for racing.
Huh. Interesting. So it has roots.
Yeah, and places like TamiyaClub.com, they're still buzzing with this stuff today. It shows that community knowledge being passed down, right?
That's pretty cool. So long history.
Yeah.
But what makes it technically possible? You said they just fit. How come?
That's the magic ingredient, really. It's direct compatibility, no adapters, no messing around for a lot of these vintage Tamiya chassis.
Just bolt them on.
Pretty much, for the
Wow.
most part. And the reason is Tamiya was smart with platform sharing back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Ah, shared parts bin engineering. Good for production costs, I bet.
Exactly. Like the Brat uses their ORV chassis, off-road vehicle chassis, and guess what else uses it?
The Frog.
You got it. And get this, the original Brat wheels weren't even just on the Brat. They were also on the Tamiya Ford F-150 Ranger XLT kit.
No way.
Yeah, and that truck was based on the Sand Scorcher chassis. It turns out, and this is a great little detail, basically all the off-road buggy wheels Tamiya made between 79 and 85 used the exact same axle adapter.
Wow. Talk about unintended consequences for hobbyists later on.
Right. Smart design back then fuels this trend now.
So, okay, these are older models. How are people even getting these parts now? Are originals still around?
Well, originals are super rare and expensive. That's where Tamiya's re-release program is, essential.
The re-releases.
By bringing back the classic kits and, crucially, the spare parts for them, they've kept the Brat attack alive. Makes the wheels and tires accessible again.
So the re-releases are basically feeding the demand. Just a cycle.
A perfect cycle, yeah. It's fascinating how that old manufacturing choice fuels this whole thing today.
It really is. So can we run through the compatibility? Which buggies are the main targets?
Sure. Let's break it down based on what we know. First up, the Sand Scorcher. Iconic, right?
Definitely.
Brat wheels fit directly, but they're usually a bit bigger, like a 1.75 inch versus the stock 1.5, so you swap the whole wheel and tire set.
Gotcha. Any quirks?
Yeah, the front Brat wheels need different bearings, 1150 size, and they have a different offset.
Offset, you mean how far they stick out?
Exactly. The Brat fronts push the wheels out a bit more, so you get a wider front stance on the Scorcher.
Huh. So it changes the look and maybe the handling a bit at the front?
Precisely. Then, the Frog. Shares that ORV chassis with the Brat, remember?
Right, so direct fit.
Direct fit. And same deal with the front offset, makes the frog a bit wider up front, too.
Okay, what about the more entry-level classics? Grasshopper, Hornet.
Good ones. Grasshopper Brat wheels bolt right on the axles, but again, they're bigger than stock 1.7 or 1.75 inch versus 1.5. So wheel and tire set swap.
Yeah, the Hornet, same deal.
Yeah, exactly the same. Direct swap is a complete set. You replace the smaller stock wheels and tires with the chunkier Brat ones.
Cool. And the military-looking one, the FAV, Fast Attack Vehicle.
Ah, the FAV. Wheels fit directly there, too. And fun fact, the rear tires on the Sandblaster 915s are actually the same as the stock FAV rear tires.
Oh, interesting. Any issues there?
There's like a tiny potential thing, sometimes with FAV wheels specifically, where the axle nut might not grab loads of thread on some axles.
Yeah.
But generally with the Brat wheels, it's not really an issue.
Okay, so across the board for these classics, it's a pretty straightforward swap.
Yeah, largely seamless. You can see why it's so popular, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so we get why people want them. But why are they so darn hard to find? What's going on with the market?
Right, let's switch gears to the market dynamics. Why the sellouts? We know the Brat attack trend drives demand from owners of all these different buggies.
Concentrates the demand onto just two-part numbers.
Exactly, but there's more to it.
Like, does this sort of thing happen in other collectible areas, like, I don't know, sneakers or old toys?
That's a really good comparison. Yeah, you definitely see similar patterns. Beyond the trend, think practical stuff.
Okay.
Those block pattern tires, people actually find them better for just driving around on pavement compared to the knobbly off-road tires a lot of these buggies come with.
Ah, so they're seen as better all-rounders for casual use.
Yeah, we saw a comment. Someone said, perfect tires for my car. Needed on-road tires for my frog rebuild. So it's function too, not just form.
Makes sense.
And then obviously you've got that deep nostalgia pull. People restoring vintage kits want that authentic or at least era-appropriate look.
Right. Even if the parts weren't original to that exact buggy, they fit the vibe.
Exactly. And then add in the collector mentality. You know, FOMO, fear of missing out.
Ah, yes, FOMO.
A shop like TTP Models said they sell out within a week every time they get them in. When something's that scarce, people jump on it when they see it.
Creates urgency.
Totally. Plus, let's face it, finding any spare parts for older RC models can just be tricky sometimes anyway.
Okay, so demand side, trend, looks, function, nostalgia, FOMO, general part scarcity. What about supply? Why doesn't Tamiya just make more?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? It comes down to how Tamiya produces these re-release parts. They do them in batches.
Not continuous production.
Nope. It's not like there's a machine just churning out Brat wheels 24/7. They do a run, it sells out, and then there's often a pretty long gap before the next batch.
And they don't announce the schedule usually?
Not really in detail, so you get these periods where they're just gone everywhere.
That explains the shortages. It's not a steady stream, it's like bursts of availability.
Exactly. And then the retailers, even the specialist Tamiya dealers, they get wiped out fast because everyone wants the same thing. And remember those original vintage parts. Numbers 50153 for wheels, 50172 for tires.
Super rare ones.
Yeah. They're mostly just on eBay now, usually for big money. At Tamiya, USA doesn't even list them as available.
So the lack of vintage options pushes everyone towards the re-releases when they do appear.
Precisely. It really is, like you said before, a feast or famine situation.
Definitely sounds like it.
Yeah.
Is there solid proof of this scarcity, like from shops?
Oh yeah, plenty. TTP Models saying they sell out in a week. They even mentioned Brat body shells being sold out too.
Wow.
Amazon often has those only X left in stock messages flashing for the tires, the 940000554s.
I've seen those.
On eBay, you see listings for the tires pop up and then show like 83 sold really quickly, while the wheel sets, the 900-5099s, are much scarcer, maybe 5 sold, 5 available, before they vanish.
Yeah, tracked.
And then you've got places like Wheelspin Models in the UK showing back orders with dates way off in the future. Like we saw one saying expected 23rd May 2025 for both wheels and tires.
2025, that's quite a wait.
Tells you everything, right? Even on Tamiya's own US site, if you see add to cart, it might not last. It often flips back to discontinued or request notifications.
So yeah, the pattern's consistent. Demand just swaps supply whenever a batch lands.
No question. It's clear these aren't just parts. They're hot commodities in that community.
Okay, so we know why people want them and why they're hard to get. Let's talk performance. What actually happens when you stick Brat wheels on these other buggies? Does it make them better? Worse?
That's a really important angle because while the look is key, the performance definitely changes. It's not always an upgrade.
How so?
Well, take a different example first. Say you tried to fit Brat wheels onto like a Tamiya lunchbox or Midnight Pumpkin, that's the CW01 chassis.
Okay.
They might physically bolt on, maybe, but you probably need to do a lot more work, lower the suspension, change the gearing to make it actually work well. It's not just plug and play for everything.
Right, so compatibility isn't universal, and performance tuning might be needed. What about the common Brat attack targets? The Hornet, for instance.
Ah, the Hornet. Yeah, the feedback there is really mixed. Some people report the handling on pavement gets worse with Brat tires.
Worse, even than the stock ones.
Yeah, especially compared to worn stock tires, and particularly if you put in a faster motor.
Why would that be?
Well, the Brat front wheels are heavier, quite a bit heavier actually, and that weight affects the Hornet's pretty basic front suspension. It doesn't cope as well.
Okay, but you said mixed feedback.
Yeah, because you'll also find other people sometimes talking about the Grasshopper, which is similar, saying handling improved.
Huh, so no clear answer.
It seems the general feeling is, look, the Hornet's basic design limits its handling anyway. Stick a faster motor in, and it wants to roll over whatever tires you use.
So the chassis is the main limiting factor.
Seems like it. And even on the Grasshoppers, someone noted it tended to roll more easily with Brat tires, even with just the standard motor. Maybe less stable than wider modern tires, but of course modern tires wouldn't look right, would they?
Right, that kills the vintage aesthetic.
So yeah, it really seems the Brat attack is often more about getting that look and maybe being better on pavement than it is about boosting pure off-road grip or handling finesse.
It's an aesthetic and surface tuning choice more than a raw performance upgrade.
That sums it up pretty well, I think. And if you dig into the why of the handling changes...
Yeah, the technical bits.
Right. Weight is a big one. Those Brat front wheel tire combos can be like almost twice as heavy as stock Hornet fronts. That's a lot of extra unsprung weight for the suspension to handle.
Definitely impacts responsiveness.
Then there's the offset, like we mentioned. The Brat fronts push the wheels out, widening the track on the Frog or Scorcher. Changes steering geometry,
Right.
diameter too, going from 1.5-inch stock to 1.7 or 1.75-inch Brat wheels changes the overall tire height. That affects your final gearing, acceleration, top speed, ride height.
Lots of knock-on effects.
And finally, the tire itself. The block pattern is good for general use, maybe better on tarmac, but probably less bite on loose dirt compared to proper off-road spike tires.
So it's all trade-offs. Looks, maybe better on-road manners, but potentially less off-road grip, or introducing some handling quirks.
Exactly. But, tinkering and modifying, that's core to the RC hobby, isn't it?
Absolutely. Part of the fun.
The Brat attack is a pretty accessible way to do that personalization. And even if it creates handling issues, figuring that out, tuning the car, making it yours, that's a big part of the appeal with these hobby-grade models.
Yeah, it comes back to that passion again. The process is as important as the result sometimes. Customizing it, making it unique, fuels the demand, even if it takes work to dial it in.
So, wrapping this deep dive up, the fact that Tamiya Brat wheels and tires are still so popular, constantly selling out, it really speaks volumes about this Brat attack trend and just how dedicated that vintage RC community is.
It really does. It's fascinating how it pulls together so many threads, doesn't it? You've got the nostalgia, the specific look, the happy accident of technical compatibility, and then the whole market dynamic created by Tamiya doing battery releases. It all combines to make these parts so sought after.
Totally agree. So maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about how these, seemingly small hobbies can show us so much about bigger things.
Like consumer behavior, design legacies.
Yeah, and the power of communities driving trends. What other everyday things out there have this kind of cult following, these weird market dynamics? Could be anything, right?
Absolutely. Definitely something interesting to mull over.